temporary residential lease form. You're only going to use this form when the seller occupies the property for no more than 90 days after closing. Meaning you've closed on the property, you've signed your documents, it has funded, the money has gone to the seller's account. However, the seller is going to stay into the property a little bit longer. You can only use this no more than 90 days, maybe a week or so, but no more than 90 days to use this form. So in this particular scenario, you're going to put the party of the lease are, this is going to be the lease, are, the landlord is now the buyer. So you're going to put the buyer's name here. Actual buyer's name, people, not buyer's name here, please. Put the actual buyer's name here. And the tenant will now be the seller's name. Make it look nice and pretty for you. And then it says landlord to the tenant, the property described in the contract between landlord and buyer and tenant is known as, and this is where you're going to put the address, the 911 address, the full 911 address. You're going to put it here. Again, you're actually going to put the address here. It even says as a hint, address goes there. Now, number 3, the term of this lease commences on the day the sale conveyed by the contract is closed. So this starts the day this is closed and funded, and terminates on, and you can put when this person's supposed to move out. Like say, for example, we executed, maybe we closed today and we gave her a week to get out. Whatever that time frame, you're going to put that date, the actual day that they need to be out, unless terminated early by reasons of other provisions. Seller shall pay landlord rent, and you can set a set amount a day. What I like to do is maybe less than what the day, you might see what a day's in or the going rate for rental at a local hotel or motel. Or maybe you might do it for free. It is completely negotiable. It's up to you guys. I do know during the hot season where there was lots of action with the sellers, that maybe the buyer, in order to win the contract, they would entice the seller by offering them a lease back, so they weren't homeless and, just take mine and we'll do it for free. But you at least have to have a number here. So a day, something. It can't be completely free. You could put $1 a day, some amount, all right? With the full amount of the rent for the term lease to be paid at the time of funding. So you're going to pay this full amount at funding. Tenant will not be entitled to a refund of rental if the lease terminates early due to tenant's default or voluntary surrender of the property. So even though, hey, we got till this day, if they move out on the 7th, they still lose out on that $1 a day or whatever they're paying daily, right? All right, but you can also, tenant shall pay the landlord at the time of funding and of the sale, X as a deposit. So it might be a set deposit, and you want to have a little bit of deposit. It's a security form because you do have to give this back to them, just to cover anything that may happen. So as a deposit to security performance of this lease by tenant, landlord may use this deposit to satisfy tenant's obligation under this lease. Landlord shall refund any unused portion of the deposit to the tenant with itemized list of all deductions from the deposit within 30 days after tenant surrenders the property of the surrenders possession of the property, and provides landlord written notice of tenant forwarding address. All right, so you can have a set amount of whatever the deposit's going to be. You work that out, negotiate that with the buyer and the seller. And it's right here, it says utilities. Tenant shall pay all utilities except for whatever you put here, which landlord shall pay. They can have something in there, may not. So if there's nothing in there, they put NA, but if it is something, you write it in there. Utilities the landlord will continue to pay. Use of property. Tenants may use the property only for residential purposes. Tenant may not assign, lease, or sublease any part of this property. Guys, they should not be here very long. This is not an opportunity for do that, but we have to make it clear and everything in writing. Tenant may not keep, tenant may keep pets on the property tenants may not keep property on, tenant may not keep pets on the property except, And you may write in their pet. They might already have a dog that's been there, that waiting for it. But any exceptions, put it in here, okay? Condition of the property. Tenant accepts the property in its present condition and state of repairs at the commencement of the lease. So when you sign the contract and transfer it over or close, this is where you accept it. That's why it's still important for you to do a final walkthrough when you before you sign, even if it's a temporary lease in place. Upon termination, tenant shall surrender the property to the landlord in the condition required under the contract, except normal wear and tear and casualty law and any casualty loss. Alterations. Tenant may not alter the property or shall install improvements or fixtures without prior written consent of the landlord. Any improvements or fixtures placed on the property during the lease will become the property of the landlord. Special provisions. Leave that blank unless there's a lawyer that wants to write in there. Inspection. Landlord may enter at a reasonable time to inspect the property. Tenant shall provide landlord door keys and access to allow access to the property during the term of the lease. Laws. Tenant shall comply with all applicable laws, restrictions, ordinance, rules, and regulations with respect to the property. Repairs and maintenance. Except as otherwise provided in this lease, tenant shall bear all expenses on repairs and maintenance of the property, including but not limited to the yard, trees, shrubbery, unless otherwise required by Texas Law Property Code. Tenant shall promptly repair at tenant's expenses any damages of the property caused directly or indirectly by any acts or omissions of the tenant or any persons that other than the landlord's agent, or invitees. I want you to know something about this. Overall, if you can avoid doing any type of seller's temporary residential lease or buyer's residential temporary lease, I really recommend you do not do it. Just extend the closing date, because this can cause some catastrophic issues if someone's not acting in the best interest or not doing what they're supposed to do or have ill intent. For example, there was a lady in where was she? In, I believe, California. Purchased her dream home. She let them do a temporary residential lease. He was only supposed to be there a week, and guess what he did? He never left. And not only did she have to continue to pay her rent, her mortgage on the house that she hadn't even moved into, but she now had to hire an attorney to fight him to get him out. It was a nasty. And also she had to pay for a place for her to live. So she's paying his mortgage, and now she had to pay for a place for her to live and pay for an attorney to fight. Guys, it's not worth it. Take it. Every situation is different, but just be cognizant of what you're dealing with. If you can avoid it, you want to avoid these altogether, okay? But I do know instances where they were doing this, to try to win the bid. But just as long as you know what, and your clients know what they have in store for them and know what possible situations they face, all right? So indemnity. Tenant indemnity indemnifies the landlord from claims of third party for injury or damages to the person or property of such third party arises from use of occupancy of the property by tenant. This includes attorney fees, costs, expenses incurred by the landlord, insurance, because this is very important. Landlord and tenant shall each maintain such insurance on the contents and property as such part may deem appropriate during the terms of the lease. Consult your insurance. Did you see how that's bolded and not bolded, but it's in capital letters? Consult your insurance agent. Possession of the property by tenant as a tenant may change the insurance policy coverage. Very important, because if something happens and you go in there and try to make a claim and you didn't tell them about this, you no longer have coverage. And so you might be on the hook to pay quite a bit in repairs just because you didn't say something. Guys, this is just not, if you can avoid it, don't do these. Default. If tenant fails to perform or observe any provision of this lease and fails within 24 hours after notice by landlord to commence and diligently pursue to remedify such failure, tenant will be in default. Termination. This lease terminates upon expiration of the term specified in paragraph 3 or upon tenant's default under this lease. meaning that date right there, or we default, or they move out a little earlier. This is the one that you need to be very nasty. This holdover lease is where I want this number to be nasty. Tenant shall surrender possession of the property upon termination of this lease. Any possession by the tenant after termination creates a tenant's at sufferance and will not operate to renew or extend the lease. Tenant shall pay, and you make this a nasty number. I will be like $500 per day during the period of any possession after termination, as damages in addition to any other remedies which the landlord is entitled to. So on top of, if you have any damages, you're going to be paying me $500 a day. This really shouldn't be a problem. I want it to be a nasty number, because if it's not a problem, if you don't plan on staying, you shouldn't have a problem with this being a nasty number. Okay? So always make sure that number is in there and it's nice, big, and healthy. Do not leave this empty, or you're going to be on the hook for, this is not good. This is saying if they stay after the time they're supposed to, they're going to have to pay an abundance of money per day. Make that nice and big. The prevalence party in any legal proceeding brought under or which respect to this lease is entitled to recover the non-prevailing party all costs such proceedings and reasonable attorney fees. Smoke alarms. The Texas Property Code requires landlord to install smoke alarms in certain locations within the property at landlord's expense. So tenant expressly waives landlord's duty to inspect and repair alarms in this contract. The reminder of the Texas property related to such devices to not apply to residential leases for terms 90 days or less. So you don't need to give all the security stuff. Landlord floor plans, flood notices pursuant. Landlords have delivered to tenant landlords floodplain notices under TREC, and you have the TREC number 504. If we are in a floodplain notice, you need to have that form. Consult your attorney. Real estate licensees cannot give legal advice. This lease is extended to be legally binding. Read it carefully. If you do not understand the effects of this lease, consult your attorney. Notice all forms, right here, all notices from one party to the other must be in writing and are effective when mailed to or hand delivered or transmitted by email or fax or electronic as following. You want to make sure this puts the landlord's phone number. Oh, sorry, not the phone. This is the landlord's mailing address, and I put email. All right, and you can also put phone numbers in there too. And you need to make sure the tenant's information is in here too before we sign. All right, and make sure at the very top that has the address of the property at the top, and also have the buyers and sellers or tenants now initial at the bottom. That's all for seller's temporary residential lease. How to fill that out. If you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know.